Title: The Screen Awaits. It was a damp, fog-laden Saturday night when Jenna and her friends, Tom, Rachel, and Brian, decided to binge-watch their favorite horror films in the dimly lit living room of Jenna's house. The flickering glow of the TV illuminated the anxious excitement on their faces, a perfect backdrop for the mindless scares they sought. "Let's start with that old classic, Nightmare on Elm Street," Tom declared, plopping down onto the couch with a giant bowl of popcorn. He loved the thrill of late-night horror marathons, and the rest of the group always indulged him, a mix of eagerness and dread abiding among them. As they settled in and the opening credits rolled, the night breezed on with reckless abandon. One movie blurred into the next, each shriek of the characters echoing in the room, a rhythmic soundtrack to the giddy terror winding tight in their chests. It wasn't until the witching hour, when fatigue mingled with unease, that the atmosphere shifted. Rachel, a self-proclaimed skeptic of all things supernatural, suggested they watch The Unkind Ones*, a movie known for its unnerving premise. A group of friends unwittingly summon fictional characters into reality through an ancient ritual depicted in the film. Jenna hesitated but nodded. Something about the story's idea sent shivers through her, like wisps of frost escaping from her breath. Halfway through the film, everything changed. Dark shadows began to swirl in the corners of Jenna's living room, creeping along the walls as the characters on screen moved with a life of their own. Brian murmured something about a draft as he glanced nervously toward the windows, the curtains rustling without a breeze to stir them. Then came the howl, a low, guttural sound that seemed to seep from the depths of the television itself, reverberating into their very bones. The lights flickered, and for a fleeting moment, Jenna thought she saw a figure, a ghostly shape standing just behind her on the couch. "Turn it off," Rachel yelled, jumping up, her voice breaking the spell of fear. "This is ridiculous." As Tom reached for the remote, a sudden jolt of static electricity crackled through the air, and the screen glitched. The characters from the film flickered ominously, their expressions twisted, eyes glowing with malevolence, as the sound of their laughter echoed in uncanny harmony with the growl. The television spat sparks, and the next thing they knew, the characters catapulted from the screen, crashing through reality like shattered glass. One by one, they emerged, their rotting forms oozing with menace. The quartet could only stare, frozen in a blend of horror and disbelief, as the skeletal figure of the film's antagonist, known as the Unkind One, materialized before them, hooded and snarling. "Welcome, welcome," it hissed, dismissing the laws of their world with a wave of its bone-like fingers. "You've invited us, now you shall play." In sheer panic, they scrambled for the exit, but the door refused to yield. The group was caught in a twisted game of survival, trapped in a living horror film of their own making. "What do we do?" Brian shouted, trying to fight back the wave of terror washing over him. "Find the remote," Jenna cried, desperately recalling how the ritual in the movie described reversing the summoning with a simple click. Through the chaos, Tom, ever the brave one, flicked his eyes toward a coffee table, where the remote lay just out of reach. "I can get it," he shouted, lunging forward. But as he moved, the Unkind One snapped its attention toward him. A burst of dark energy radiated from the figure, and Tom was thrown against the wall, the wind knocked out of him. The others screamed, horror blossoming in their eyes. "Leave him alone," Rachel cried, doing her best to remain brave. She picked up a nearby lamp, swinging it wildly. It shattered against the floor, scattering glass shards everywhere. The once familiar shapes of her favorite on-screen characters had morphed into a frenzied pack, hungry for torment. Jenna's heart raced. Time dwindled. "The remote," she urged, desperation in her grip as she darted toward Tom. All that mattered now was survival. Their bodies tangled in a frantic struggle toward the coffee table. But before they could reach the remote, the room twisted, enveloped in shadows. The very air grew thick, suffocating, making it impossible to think. A second before the shadows engulfed them, Jenna spotted their salvation, the remote. She lunged for it, fingers grazing its surface just as the figures lunged. Willingly, Jenna pressed the button. The screen flickered to life, and a brilliant wave of energy burst forth, unraveling the stout bonds of the horror movie. The characters howled as they were sucked back into the screen, disappearing into the depths of their fictional prison once more. The friends collapsed in a heap of exhaustion, panting and quaking, as silence fell heavy in the room. The TV crackled, an eerie stillness ensued. The fear subsided, but the night felt forever altered. Rattled and wary, they shared a frail laugh, a momentary release. "So, no more horror movies?" Brian suggested hesitantly. They all nodded, minds too scarred to tread those dark waters again. But beneath that laughter, a gnawing fear lingered. As Jenna glanced at the flickering screen, she couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps the entities residing within were watching, silently waiting for the next invitation, lying patiently in wait for a new, unsuspecting audience to beckon them forth once more.